Welcome to Board Game Binge, the place where we bring you bite-sized, bingeable board game content from across the industry. I'm your host, James Staley, and in this episode, we're chatting with Kelsey and Adam, who along with their 6 kids, make up the Tabletop Family. These tabletop influencers help navigate the modern world of board games through reviews, recommendations, and fun, engaging content. Kelsey and Adam, Adam and Kelsey, welcome to the binge. How you doing?
Hi, doing great. Thanks for having us.
Oh, it is great to have you. As I was just saying before we went on air, you've been on my list for quite some time. I've been following you guys for, I think, about a year now. I know you've been on Instagram for a few years, TikTok, I think, more recently. Can you tell us about the size of your family?
It's just a small, quaint little family.
Yeah, 6 kids. Wow.
Yeah, we've got 6 kids. Our youngest just turned 1. We had our 6th last year. So yeah, we have 6. Our oldest is 10, or turns 10 next month. So 10 to 1.
Now, is this always the plan, or is this something that just kind of like, did you always want to have a large family, or is this something that you guys just kind of happened into, or?
It was always the plan.
We knew when we got together we wanted to have a large family, and the idea was always to have a basketball team, and now we have a sub, so it works out great.
Now, did you both come from large families yourselves, or?
I come from just 2 siblings. Both my parents had more siblings, so we had a lot of aunts and uncles, and that was great to have.
And I'm the oldest of 5, so I like to say I'm competitive, and so I had to have more than my parents.
Yeah, because anytime like I talk to people that have like, usually the cell size of their family often replicates kind of one of the parents, right? So, so Kelsey, sounds like you come from a larger family, so you kind of knew what you're getting into, I guess, there.
A little bit. It's always a little an adventure.
It's different when you're the parent as opposed to a kid in the scenario, right?
Yeah. And now the spread you said, sorry, is 1 to 10. Is that the spread?
Yeah, our youngest just turned 1, 2 weeks ago, and then our oldest will turn 10 next month.
Wow. Now, is this something, like, is board games something you guys been doing, like, even before you had kids, or is it kids that kind of got you into board games, or how did that all start?
Well, the kids definitely helped, right? I mean, we can't go out anywhere, so we have to have fun.
I guess.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I grew up playing cards with my family. We did a lot of just like your standard fare board games, but we played a lot of cards. And then, in college, I got introduced to Munchkin, which was my gateway drug into bigger and better games. And then 2010, I think, Dominion came out, and that got us hooked. And then, as we sort of grew as a couple at that time, our passion for board game just kind of grew and grew and grew until grew into what this is. Yeah.
Now, were you backing Kickstarters, or was it literally just going to like your local store and just kind of hopping upon, indie games?
I mean, we sort of came into board gaming before Kickstarter sort of came in. Like, I remember hearing about Alien Frontier when it sort of first became like the first big board game on Kickstarter, but we've always just wanted to play what's new. And the idea of like paying and waiting for a Kickstarter has just not been something we've really been too much about.
Board gamers go, we could probably count on one hand all of the Kickstarters that we've actually backed. Like, there's a lot that we root for, and we're like, we hope we do great, but like, we just don't typically back on a Kickstarter.
Yeah, when I first got into Kickstarter, like I didn't know a lot about it, and my younger brother told me about it, and I always laugh, and he laughs at me because he was telling me about this game he had backed, and I said, oh well, let's play it tonight. And he's like, I don't get this for a year. What are you talking about playing tonight? Like,
yeah.
Right. So it's, for people that aren't patient, certainly Kickstarter is not the way to go. And so when you've got these, when you start off as a couple and you're playing games and you're getting into games, I'd say were heavier, like Dominion is kind of a heavier game, right? And then you have young children. Is that kind of changed how you play your games, or are you still kind of like, how do you compartmentalize, or how do you split that up? Adult games versus kind of kid games?
Well, we don't play like everything that we personally would like to play as often as we wish, obviously. But we've made sure that our kid collection has grown, and so that we want to play fun games, our kids do as well. And so we've really tried hard to add a lot of variety and great kid games to their lineup. And then now they're getting old enough that we've been kind of like introducing them to these fun games that in a lot of ways we got into the hobby with, and now we kind of get to like re-experience with them, which is kind of fun. Like we were teaching, I taught the kids Adventureland recently, and so that was just kind of fun to like play that again with them, and they were 6 and 7, so they do great.
Yeah, I think sometimes you think playing kids games, you're playing games that can't be fun, but that's one of the things we try to share and highlight with our content is if you play the right kids games, it can be just as fun for you to play and have those experiences with your kids. And then finding ways to play the games you like to play and modify them so your kids can play them by adjusting a few rules here or there, or playing open-handed and just getting them familiar with the mechanisms and the different things you can do so they can progress to those more advanced games quicker than if you don't expose them to them at all.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to teach kids almost like little life lessons, right? Like you can't always win. It is a great life lesson for kids, right? And it sucks when the young ones lose the first time and they get really upset, right? And or if it's a game where there's any element of take that, right? And all of a sudden they feel like people are picking on them. But unfortunately, these are things that are part of life, right? Now, my belief is that the younger you can get kids playing games and social interacting and learning how to deal with these kind of situations, I think kind of helps them out later on. Is that fair, do you think? Or is that kind of a similar perspective you might have?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's like a muscle, right? Like if they don't exercise that, like the experience of playing, of winning graciously and, losing respectfully and all that stuff, like they don't learn how to, they don't learn how to do that. And so the more they are exposed to it, the better they get at it. And a lot of it is just making sure that it's focused on the fun that we are having, and so that it's less about winning. We really try not to make it about winning so much, as so far as like, what have you learned? Like, what would you do differently? And all of that stuff for the kids so they can kind of like process and decompress the game afterwards and focus on what went well and where they had fun.
And how are you dealing with that now? Because, given this large family, you guys play a lot of games, clearly. I mean, anybody follows any of your channels see that you guys play a lot of games. How have you kind of dealt with the kids in this regard? Like, are they all kind of fully supportive and kind of into the hobby, or are you finding some are kind of not as much into the games as others?
At this stage, all our kids are really excited because it means they get to spend time with us, and it's a family activity, and we really play up the theme, and they get really into it. As we get older and they maybe find other hobbies and interests, they might peel off a little bit more, but right now they're all on board. Yeah.
Well, it's important too, like they all find their interest in it in a different way. So like we had, like our daughter was like right away from a very young age, she started playing. I think we got her first game at like 18 months, and she just kind of like would sit there and she'd play it, and she did great, and she has not stopped. Then we had one of our sons also is very similarly to that, and then another one, I'd really say only in the last like year and a half or two has been interested. And then our 5-year-old likes the idea of playing a game more so than following the rules. And so for him, we try to find him something that's more like dexterity based, that gets him moving. That's what he wants to do. And that's fine, right? Like they all kind of find their path through it in their own way. Like it's not like we have some perfect game focused kids. Like they're they're definitely all different as far as what they prefer.
Now, for people who are joining us either live or on the replay, I just want to throw out there that this is actually a very special episode. This is our very first episode we're doing where we're streaming live on Instagram. So if you're joining us on Instagram live, thank you. Welcome. I thought, hey, what better episode to start streaming on Instagram with than obviously with the Tabletop Family. So thank you for sharing this moment with me there, guys. If you're not following right now, please give us a follow. Give Tabletop Family a follow. If you're listening to us on our audio podcast, simply go to @BoardGameBinge Podcast or the Tabletop Family. You can find us there on Instagram. Now, let's talk about your blog. You guys started this blog about, I think it was in July of 2018. Is that when that started?
Yeah, started that.
And what was the plan behind that? Like, was it just something you're just like, I got to write some of this stuff down? Or were you starting to kind of formulate like a formalized structure behind kind of how you want to approach things? Or how did that come about?
It was so random. It was just kind of like a happenstance kind of thing where I had in one like week, I had 3 people, friends of mine, reach out and be like, hey, I need game recommendations. My son's birthday's coming up, or hey, we just what was that game that you recommended to us this other day or whatever. And I was like, I told Adam, I'm like, I should write this down. I should make a blog. What would you think if I made an Instagram and I did like kind of like, you know, you see like all these people in like the influencer world doing their like DIY stuff or their all that, you know, like makeup blog. And I'm like, what if I just did that for board games? And I didn't, the funny thing is like, I didn't really follow any board, I would still say I don't follow any board game content. Like I knew who Tom Bassel was and Rodney, and that was like the end of my knowledge. So I was like, maybe there's a space for like us to like come in and provide some of that like content where, you know, like I existed on the internet and I didn't see it. And I'm like, I could do that. And so it just kind of happened that way.
Yeah. And I think, and I'm sharing for people who are watching on, again, watching versus listening. So if you're listening, check out our either a YouTube channel or Instagram channel. You can see the replay of this. But on what I found very interesting about your blog page is not only do you do game reviews, but I believe at one point that you're talking about like, you know, games to play with kids and how to approach, and I think maybe it was even on your Instagram channel where you had a category where you're talking about, you know, here's some rule modifications you could do for younger kids and so forth. How important has that been for you to kind of put your mark on the industry in that way?
I would say, I mean, we're trying to find an audience that is trying to get into games, have that family experience, and really speaking to them. And there's a lot of content creators that talk to the people who are already in the board game space, you know, and they're talking about the new hot games and those levels and trying to create content that's approachable and engaging for people who are like, know what they can find at Target, and which selection has gotten much better. But, you know, maybe they've never heard about Haba, you know, and Haba is a wonderful game for building family games from, you know, 18 months to, you know, 99, like it says on the box. So like, that is the space we're trying to interact and engage with, and I think we've found some success doing so.
Yeah, and it's like, as far as like the modification thing, it's an element of just like encouraging people to be like, you know, you can take ownership of the game and you can say, this isn't working for my kid, but I think if I just change this one little thing, it would. But even though the rules don't say that, I mean, there are folks that are like, that's against the rules, and I'm like, that's okay. Right. It's gonna work. We're gonna get there.
We're not curing cancer here, right? Like, is it going to hurt if we change the rule? I mean, Monopoly is a perfect example of house rules, right? I mean, that started with Monopoly. So house rules is definitely a thing. I think it was, I can't remember the name of the game, the one where the monkey is like, you're slapping the monkey's hand and it throws its coconut.
Yeah, coconuts.
Coconuts, yeah. And you're explaining like how to modify the play style so that you're not spending all your time running and picking up the pieces because your kid, you know, slaps it in the coconut.
Only one coconut out at a time.
Yeah, you know? If you're playing with more than one coconut with kids like below age 8, you're doing
yeah, you're chasing them all over the house.
Yeah, it's smart though because it's putting your own kind of hook on the industry, and I think you kind of nailed it. That there's tons of stuff out there right now, right, where they're focusing on going deep on mechanics or, you know, focusing on medium weight games, heavyweight games, getting into, you know, D&D or RPG games, but there's not a lot. I would say there's some, but there's not a lot that are focused on family games, right? And not even family games per se, like as in family games, but how to approach games as a family. And I think that that's something that adds value, quite frankly, to probably a lot of people who, as you say, may not be deep into the blogs and, you know, following, you know, all these Kickstarter or, you know, Facebook pages and so forth, but might be just scrolling Instagram and looking for a neat idea on how they can engage with their kids on a game. So I think it's cool that you guys were able to do that. Were you surprised by how quickly you were able to get your success? Like how quickly you grew your audience?
I'm always surprised when everyone kind of wants to follow our nonsense. You know, I mean, I try to have really helpful content and always just kind of really be like, how is this serving, you know, someone who would find my account, is this serving them in a way? So I work really hard at doing that. But you know, it's like, it's really less, it's not so much about the numbers for us. It's more about making sure that, you know, we are providing what we think is, you know, serving a need either for families or within the industry as well. And it's just, it's an honor that people like to follow along, and can, especially when they get like messages, folks that say like, hey, I got that game that you recommended and it was awesome. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly why I'm doing this. So it's so fun.
Oh, that's awesome. And in terms of creating the content, when I see a lot of the photography, right, on your Instagram page, for instance, it's very good, right? So right away I start thinking, like, are these guys photographers? Do they have photography in their background? Or did you just happen to get lucky and become a good photographer? How'd that work out?
Well, no one gets lucky and becomes a good photographer. It's something you work at.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was a photographer before I am now, and so I took family portraits and did some weddings and stuff like that, and just brought that and started shooting tabletop games, which in some ways are a lot easier than people. So.
Yeah. And then in terms of being able to talk in front of a camera, obviously, people that look at your content, can tell that you're comfortable, or at least you have the appearance of being comfortable in front of a camera. Is this something you have a background at all, like community theater or anything like that, prior to kind of starting the family? And
You're in show choir.
Oh, yeah.
You're not really in front of the camera too much.
No.
I guess not like community theater or anything, but I worked for my college newspaper or the news channel and all of that, and I was like I worked at camp. Like being in front of a crowd doesn't bother me, and that's just you just kind of imagine that that's what's happening with the Instagram video and stuff. Yeah. So it's just kind of fun.
And when you're filming the content at home, you're not really in front of anyone, and you have as many takes as you want. So if you're out there thinking, "Hey, should I do it?" Give it a shot, right?
Right. Yeah. It's like a muscle again, right? Like when you shoot a few videos and you're like, okay, those were bad. That's fine. You don't have to post them. Move on to the next one, and you'll get better at it and stuff. And you kind of find, I feel like I found like my groove as far as like when I want to say things or how I want to present content, whether it's in a carousel or a reel or a story or anything like that, and you just kind of feel it out and have fun with it. Yeah.
And then in terms of the face between the two of you, it seems like Kelsey, you're on camera more, at least speaking more in a lot. Now, is this part of the plan, or is it just kind of worked out that way?
It's fully Kelsey runs the Instagram, the TikTok. The channel would not be what it would be without her just drive and effort into it. And I'm more than happy to sit back and bring the game knowledge and teach the games and learn the games. And that's where I sort of contribute. Happy to be in, a skit here or there, or share my opinion as needed. But Kelsey's...
You're the official rules learner. Yeah. If I had to learn all the rules of the game, I would be
We would talk about one game over and over again.
Yeah, I'm used to behind the scenes guy, and I'm more in the front.
And then how do you guys budget your time? Because so Kelsey, you basically work at home and you teach the kids from home, right? So they're home taught. Mm-hmm. Like all 6 kids are?
All 6 kids. Yeah, we've got 3 in school.
So that's a lot of time. Like that takes a lot of time, right? Like that's not a small task with that number of kids. And if you have 3 that are in school and 3 that aren't, but you still have to watch the 3 while the other 3 are being taught. And then Adam, you were working outside the home, I believe, as well, right?
Yep. Yeah, I worked at college housing. Yeah.
So how do you guys find time? Because from the outside looking in, it's a lot. Again, it's a lot of content, right? So I'm thinking, like, I have 2 kids, and we were saying just before we went on air, the second one's ready to leave the nest, and even I find I don't have a ton of time to always be playing games. I'm lucky if I can get like 2-3 games in a week, but it seems you guys have a lot more, and it could be just the impression you give in your content. But how do you budget your time around the games?
It's hard. It looks like it takes a lot of time, and it does, but a lot of it is like anything in life. You make time for things that you want to do, and it's a lot of late nights. I'll be up until 11 or 12 every night working on some of the stuff, because during the day I'm at home watching kids and being a mom and a teacher and all of the things that you do working from home, and then basically when they go to bed, that's kind of when I work on this, and then stolen moments throughout the day. So it's hard. I had a lot of list making, a lot of trying to like keep it organized, what to do, what and when, where.
Well, I was going to say, you do come across as being very organized, right? That was actually one of the things I wrote down in my notes coming into this is like some of the content I see, there's a lot of lists I'm seeing in the content. And obviously to be able to create the content you create, it takes a lot of work, right? I don't think people realize how much work content creation is. It is an immense amount of work. And like I can think of like the one
in a lot of ways, right? Like it's just you work all the time on it, and it's just a passion project in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And then there was one video you did where you were talking about when you're traveling, right? And how to take games with you on traveling. You had like these little Tupperware type things and the way to organize them and so forth, which was super clever to begin with. But it kind of demonstrated like how good you are at organization, right? Or there was another recent post you guys had where you're talking about like you have your kids' desks, right? And then you have like the organization closet beside it with the materials and so forth. Mm-hmm. Is this something that has come, I'm getting to a question here. So is this something that's come as being a homeschooling teacher, or is this something you've always kind of had, is like even back like when you were younger?
I'd say I've always been a little organized. Like, I mean, you gotta be, right? Like, I mean, if you, especially just even like as a big family, you gotta be organized. You gotta know where things are and what you need. There's always things to organize. But with all the kids and everything that we have to do, it's just like it's been even more so important to make sure that we have it all kind of figured out, filed away, however we need to do.
With a big family, there's a limited amount of space for games, so you got to maximize every little ounce of it, right?
Yeah.
So shrink them into those smaller cases, or can you cram this expansion into that box? Makes more rooms for more games.
And do you guys do this even when you're not traveling? Like, do you take your current game collection and kind of try to condense it down as much as you can?
It depends, right? Like, it depends where we're going, what we're doing. Like, if we're going to go and hang out with family, we'll for sure bring some games and stuff. But but then there's trips where we'll never like not bring a game.
There's
but
always
like,
one
we'll
in the
bring
glove
something,
box.
right? Like sometimes we'll bring a lot, and sometimes we'll just bring one game, like one game we can throw in a purse or something. We're going to be more focused on like whatever we're experiencing on the trip than playing games inside. Yeah.
And then, so with your content creation, it's everything from like, tips, right? So you'll say, I think there was one that was, tips for date night, for instance, right? Here's some tips for playing games on date night. But you've intermixed that with some like comedy sketches as well, right? You have some fun sketches you guys do. How do you map all that out? Like, do you have kind of like a schedule where you try to say, we're going to have 3 videos this week, or, one's going to be kind of a fun video, or is it just as kind of inspiration hits, or how do you kind of plan that?
It's a little bit of both, right? Like, we try to map it out as best as we can, as far as just like, you think about a game, like, okay, what do I want to show in this game? Do I want to kind of like show an overview of the game, or do I want to include it in a list? Do I want to do both? And so you kind of like intersperse how we want to do that. And then sometimes we'll be chatting when we're playing a game, and it's like, oh, that would be a great idea, and we'll like write it down. And sometimes we're like, no, let's change plans. We're like filming this tonight, and we're getting it ready to go. And other time, the thing that's always so funny though is the content that ends up doing the best is almost like that, like the spur of the moment content, where you're just like what was the one I did of the tapestry game, where I just like filmed on top, like over the table. I'm like, this is what we're playing tonight, and I posted it not thinking anything, and then everyone loved it on Instagram and like got a lot of DMs about it. And I'm like, oh, okay, I did not foresee that happening that way. So it's a lot of making sure that we plan it out and then don't overthink it. Like,
yeah, I think I saw on I forget who the content creator was, but they did a meme where they said like, me after spending like 14 hours working on my TikTok and like 6 views, right? And then me working on the TikTok for 30 seconds and it's kind of like 6,000 views, right? Like, it's so kind of random. And speaking of TikTok, you guys have a massive following. Obviously, I think it's about 25,000 followers, and this is less than a year old. So it started, I think, in July of last year. Any tips for people out there looking to do TikToks? Like,
I was so late to the TikTok game. I like tried to avoid it forever. I was like, I'm not doing TikTok. But I really I started to be like taking it seriously, not seriously, but like what was it, September probably. And I was like, I'm gonna make TikTok specific content. And a lot of it, what I loved about it and what I think resonates really well is not having it be overproduced, of just having it feel like we're chatting, like, you know, like I wanted to bring more my Instagram stories that I kind of do that kind of style, which I love. And I'm like, I'm just gonna save this kind of style and I'm gonna put it on TikTok and it's mostly that, and then interspersed with some other stuff, and it did really well. And it's just
and I would say the big thing is we did have a video that went sort of viral. You know, the TikTok algorithm helped push it out to a lot of people, but we had a lot of other great content that supported that. So while we didn't have the biggest views on those other things, those people that found that viral video checked out the rest of our stuff and said, wow, they're making great content. And so they stuck around. And
that's important on TikTok or Instagram, anything. It's all about what value are you providing, right? And that's why, like they say, like niche down. And I think some people dismiss that without really like, oh, it's really important. Because when we had that TikTok go viral or whatever.
Was that the Ticket to Ride one, or was it the...
that was the case.
It was the case, right?
So we had all the boxes.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was so funny because before I posted it, I said, I think the people, you know, I think board gamers are going to hate it. I think board gamers are going to hate it. And I think everyone that we're trying to get is going to love it. So I'm going to post it.
Yeah.
And it was oh my gosh, the
comments.
Flood of
the boxes.
Oh my goodness. It was hilarious. But when I was there, you know, like we had all that backlog of content, and then I was luckily able to capitalize because I did not expect it to do well as that like that. But I'm like, when comments started coming in, I was able to immediately respond and you know, work off of that like little boost that we got from that, and show that, you know, if you are wanting board games within, you know, like this kid to medium heavy weight range, we're there. We've got you covered. And people saw that, and that's what it wasn't the video that so much that got them to hit the follow button. It was the collection of videos that I had, and like knowing that, okay, these people we can trust. You know, they scrolled through probably a few videos and then they're like, okay, now we'll hit that follow button. And so I think that's really the key of, you know, TikTok or Instagram is it's not like, don't go looking for that viral fame. It's more just like that steady progression of having that content that people are searching for, and keep chugging at it. And eventually, if you keep doing that and you keep serving them, then, you know, you'll find your people.
How many videos you try to do a week on TikTok?
I mean, it depends. The goal is to try to post something daily, you know, but sometimes the goal and what reality isn't always a 1-for-1, and it will vary from posts to reels. And
I take the weekend off. So. I take the weekend off. I don't post anything on Saturdays or Sundays. That's just, I want to be with my family, but we do a lot of filming on those days. That's when we play a lot of our games on the weekend. So Monday to Friday is when I'm typically posting stuff. So it's the goal to have at least 5 days worth of content, but I'm really happy if I have 4.
And do you have publishers now, like just constantly saying, hey, can you take a look at our game? Like, are you getting inundated now?
I wouldn't call it inundated.
We have some great partners that we publish with, or partners that we partner with.
Sure.
And, you know, I would keep saying Haba because they were one of the first companies that reached out to us. Grandpa Beck's Games was one of the first companies that reached out to us. So we feel really indebted to them, and that they helped us out a lot. And now we love working with them to really provide a unique take on content that maybe other content creators don't make.
And it's fun. It's fun too, because a lot of the publishers that you kind of become friends with them, and you get to know them through the correspondence and stuff. And I think that's so cool. And we're always honored when any publisher wants to send us a game or work with us in some way. We just think it's so fun.
No, that's awesome. Now, given that you've kind of reached this level of, I don't want to say notoriety, but 25,000 is a lot of subscribers, right? 7,000 is a lot on Instagram as well. With your blog now, the past couple of years, you've played just a ton of games. Any aspirations for you guys to do your own game or have your own creation that you can put onto Kickstarter yourselves? Or
a year ago, I would have said no.
Yeah,
I would have said no, but like we chat about it a lot.
We have a lot of theme ideas discussions, right? And one of the things we see that really resonates with our young kids is themes about real life. They don't necessarily always get into talking animals, but we have a game about getting ready for bed, and they just really connect, and they connect with those things. So if it would be something that we did create, it would be in that sort of kid, toddler sort of range of really something that you can play and they can connect with and grow from. So we'll see. We'll keep tinkering with our ideas, but nothing to announce.
No,
nothing yet. Eh? Well, hey, if people want to subscribe to you, the Tabletop Family, I think is the same handle on TikTok as well, is it not?
Yeah.
At Tabletop Family for TikTok, and I think Instagram is at Tabletop Family as well. I encourage people to follow you guys. What's that?
Yeah, check out the website as well, thetabletopfamily.com.
That's right. Tabletop Family is the website, and there's also links there, I think, to your different channels as well. And then hopefully in the next year, we'll hear an announcement of the game that you guys are going to launch. I can't wait.
Don't hold your breath.
Well, guys, thank you so much again for coming on this podcast. It has been just a pleasure getting to know you, and I wish you all the best in this coming year with your content and your family.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Take care. Cheers. This has been an episode of the Board Game Binge podcast, hosted by James Staley, produced by James Staley and Mike Bruner, with original music by Nick Smith. If you would like to watch these interviews live, simply subscribe to our YouTube channel, Board Game Binge, and you'll get access to live interviews, giveaways, and interesting board game content from across the industry. I can't wait for you to join us. See you next time.